In the following interview, we talked to Derrell Edwards, Jackman for Gibbs Racing. In the interview, we discussed his first steps in NASCAR as a Jackman for Childress Racing, as well as making history with the Daytona 500 victory in 2018. Further, we talked about his move to Gibbs Racing, what the best and worst pit stalls in NASCAR are, his achievements with the 54 and 20 team in 2023, as well as how he tries to inspire the next generation of pit crew members. All this and more in the following video. Have fun. Derrell, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. You're Jackman for JGR, but how was your way into NASCAR? What was your first touch with it, your first contact? How did it all came together?
Yeah, so yeah, man, I played, my background was actually college basketball. So I played basketball at High Point University. That was kind of like my calling, right? I was playing basketball my whole life and ended up at High Point University, which was a small mid-major Division I, which that kind of landed my chance in the NASCAR because I met a guy who was already involved in NASCAR. And at the time he was involved with Childress Racing. So he kind of was mentioning it to me, bringing it up, saying like, "Hey man, you sure you don't want to be a part of NASCAR pit crews?" And I had no understanding what a pit crew even was at that time. With me being from Baltimore and just my upbringing, I knew nothing about cars, so it wasn't really like my interest at first. To be honest, I was kind of pushing them off and brushing them off, like, man, I don't know nothing about it, so why would I get into it? But one day I actually took the guy up on his offer and went out to Childress Racing and checked out the facilities and was kind of blown away from it. It just was something different, you know what I mean? It was something I never seen, so it kind of intrigued me. And I just had the utmost respect immediately for NASCAR because I was like, I didn't even know this world existed. This whole big shops going on. You got the suspension room. There's just so many moving parts, within one company. I was blown away and amazed by it. And I eventually did an internship, right after March Madness. So right after I was done playing basketball, I went up to Childress every day, man. I was driving right after class, just checking it out, seeing if I was interested. I'm like, I see a couple, guys that look like athletes, they changing the tires really fast. So I was like, let me see if I can do it. And immediately, man, I kind of fell in love with it. And it was more so I felt the challenge of it. It wasn't my background. It wasn't something I was used to doing. So everything was brand new. So I really enjoyed trying to figure out, pit stops and pit crews and everything about NASCAR. I knew nothing about it. So that's kind of like my intro into how I got into NASCAR in the first place, by a guy named Richard Payne, who gave me the opportunity and presented NASCAR to me, which I knew nothing about.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting story. But how long did it take for you to actually become a member of RCR and going into your role as a Jackman? What did make the difference? For example, okay, I want to be a Jackman, or I am a Jackman and not a tire carrier or gas man or whatever.
Yeah, so I kind of tried out a few things when I first got up there because, like I said, I wasn't getting paid for going up there every day. So it was kind of like an open book for me. I tried picking up a gas can. I tried, hanging tires as a tire carrier. And I just felt like when I put the jack in my hand, and also when I watched, them guys do pit stops, and I watched the jack man in particular, he was kind of the guy that seemed like the quarterback to me. He was kind of the guy that was essentially, running the show. And I was like, man, that's more of my personality, being a leader. I'm like, man, I want to pick up that jack. I want to see what that's all about, because that looked like that fits my character. You know what I mean? Because he was the guy in the middle of the wall, looking to his right, looking to his left, before jumping off the wall and going to do a pit stop. So that's kind of, it just fitted me, you know what I mean? I'm like 6'1", 225, and I was used to being a basketball player, so I was used to being down in like a defensive position. So it just felt natural when I picked up the jack, man, and I just worked day in and day out with it. I never took lunch breaks. When I was going up there, I just stayed and just worked on it. And the coach at the time, Eric Wilson, noticed that, I was getting pretty good at a rapid pace, with just just being myself and just working on it myself with no coaching. And that's kind of what ended. I did that for like 2 months or so, and that kind of gave me the opportunity. The coach at the time pulled me in the office and was like, Derrell, man, the guys like you. They say you're a hard worker, and we kind of want to give you the opportunity, after you graduate from college, if you would like to come work for RCR, in the pit department. We'll pay you. We'll pay you $10 an hour. I'm gonna give you the honest truth. They said we'll pay you $10 an hour to work in the pit department, and we'll see where it goes from there. So I was like, yeah, man. I went home back to Baltimore for like a week or two, and I moved back to North Carolina, man. And that's kind of where I started to, reside back in North Carolina and try to get a place. And that was me becoming a man at that point and getting involved in NASCAR.
With which car did you start off your NASCAR Cup Series? And also, did you immediately go to NASCAR, or was it like ARCA, trucks, Xfinity, maybe late models? What was your really first contact or touch on the track? Your first pit stop?
Yeah. So my first pit stop was on a ARCA car. I was about a couple months in training and stuff like that, trying to learn how to be a jackman and watching them guys, all the NASCAR Cup guys at the time, day in and day out. And it was about 2 or 3 months in, I got the opportunity. A guy asked me if I wanted the opportunity to go out and pit an ARCA car. I think it was out in Minnesota. So the fun story about that, I'll never forget this, because we drove 16 hours to Minnesota in the middle of nowhere for one pit stop. For one pit stop for like $150. I got there, I didn't have earphones or like any communication, so I had to spend my $150 that I made on communication and headphones. So man, that was quite an experience. Like, it was one I never will forget. Drove 16 hours to Minnesota for one pit stop for $150, which I had to spend. And then I did well on that one pit stop, and doing well back then when you first getting involved with it is no mistakes. You know what I mean? It don't mean necessarily going fast as you can. So I got through that race with no mistakes, which made those guys start noticing, like, man, maybe we should send them more to more races. And I started doing ARCA races. I did a couple late models for Daniel Hemrick at the time. Me and Daniel Hemrick are pretty close because I pitted him early on before he got to where he is now. And yeah, man, I just worked my way up. I went from ARCA series to, I didn't even get into trucks really early in my career. I went from ARCA straight to Xfinity. So within about a 6-month span, I was on an Xfinity car. My first car was the 62 South Point Chevy with Brendan Gaughan. That's when I really got my first shot, my first opportunity to pit a whole season with Brendan Gaughan. And it was funny because that opportunity randomly came about. The guy, Jason Hunt, who was jacking it at the time, he was leaving the sport and vouched for me and went to the coach like, man, this kid is a hard worker. I think we should give him an opportunity to be on Brendan Gaughan's car. And yeah, I did a full season on that, man. It went well. And that was kind of, after that, there was no more Xfinity. I went straight to Cup Series. And after that season after, I was on the Paul Menard, and I went straight to the Cup Series. So it took me basically a year and a half to get to the Cup Series, which, from what all the guys was telling me, that was pretty fast for anybody.
That sounds pretty fast. I mean, with no experience whatsoever, as you mentioned, no experience even with cars or what the Jackman is, to go to the biggest stage of NASCAR is pretty impressive. But do you maybe miss a bit that you didn't do trucks in between? Is it like something you would like to do?
Right.
Or is it like, okay, now I'm in Cup, I have so much experience, it's so used for me to do the Cup cars, I want to stay there. I'm not interested in going lower divisions, if you will.
Yeah, no. So I never looked at it like that, man. I'm kind of like, just like how I looked at basketball, I'm kind of a gym rat. You know what I mean? I'm kind of I don't even know how you would relate that to pit crew, but I love pit stops. I'll do pit stops on anything, anytime, anywhere. And I didn't skip over that stuff. I have pitted full truck seasons before with John Hunter Nemechek. I've pitted, whole ARCA on, on and off, and I've done Xfinity. I've done all the series, and I've won at every level. But yeah, man, it's not like the pace that I moved up so fast. I wouldn't like go back and like try to get more experience, because it was almost like getting thrown into into the water, and it's either sink or swim. You know what I'm saying? So it was like I had to grow up very fast. I had to learn very fast, which was fun, man, because I was around a lot of veteran guys and I was the young guy. And yeah, I just had to get good really fast, and I had to get consistent really fast, and I had to learn as I was doing more pit stops that necessarily being the fastest doesn't always mean that you're the best. You know what I mean? Like, this will be my 10th season coming up next year, and what I've learned through the process is, being the fastest doesn't always mean you're the best. Being fast as well as consistent, puts you in that realm of being talked about of being the best, and that's what I pride my hat on. But yeah, man, I wouldn't go back and change it. I had to grow up fast, and that's what kind of made me to be, arguably probably one of the best in the sport today.
Did you ever drop a car from the jack, or was it like all the time you?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, absolutely. I have I haven't always been who I am today, and still today, I make mistakes. Yeah, I've had cars come off the jack, and that was all a part of that learning process. You know what I mean? Like, I just had to learn from it. You want to go through those experiences because if you don't go through them experiences, I feel like you always have in the back of your mind, like, will I ever do that? Have I done that? What does that feel like? And then, when that does happen, how do you respond? You know what I'm saying? So I've had opportunities where I have made mistakes, in races and had to bounce back, because you had a pit stop right after that. And I think, I learned so much more from like my losses and my mistakes than I do, ever winning. You know what I mean? So yeah, I've had issues, and I still have issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That comes with the territory.
I understand. Yeah, it's, I think, pretty normal and pretty human that you do mistakes. Otherwise, we would be robots. But as you mentioned, you won at every level, and arguably your biggest win is the Daytona 500 in 2018 as the first African American pit crew member. Looking back 5.5 years, nearly 6 years, how much does it still mean to you to this day, and how do you reflect on it? I mean, is it like a moment you just cannot let it soak in because it's that big? It's like the Super Bowl. Or is it like, okay, I won the Daytona 500, I'm hungry for more, I want the second, the third, whatsoever, wherever the road brings me?
Yeah, nah, man, it's definitely our Super Bowl of our sport, and yeah, honestly, man, I don't know if it's sunk in yet because like you don't like obviously I'm still in the moment, I'm still active, so I know it's a big deal, but I feel like I won't understand it until like I'm out of the sport, like when I'm not doing pit stops anymore, and they still talking about, that win in 2018 with Austin Dillon. That's when I'm like, man, that was really a big win. That was a big thing. Like, even when it happened, man, I was like, I didn't even understand the magnitude of the win at first, to be honest with you. And let alone being the first African American pit crew member to ever do it. I had no idea. I just showing up to Daytona, like any other race, trying to do my job, and we just went and won that. But yeah, it's a big win, man. It's cool. It's cool to have that win, and that win being my first cup win, so it's almost like nothing has, added up to that win yet. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like I'm going backwards now. But obviously, the next big goal for me will be to win a Cup Series championship. I won the Xfinity Series championship with Tyler Reddick in 2019, which was fun. Yeah, man. So it's a cool deal, but I don't think it'll sink in until I'm out of the sport and retired from it.
Okay, and then with RCR, obviously, you win. And then in 2021, you made a change in your career. You moved over from RCR to JGR. What was the reason for it? Was it like, okay, Coach Gibbs went, or Joe Gibbs came to you and said, we noticed you, we need a Jackman? Or was it from your side that you say, I want to change, I want to experience new pit crews, maybe go to the JGR, one of the best in the business? What was the reason behind it?
Yeah, it was a couple of things. COVID had hit, so we were sitting at home. We wasn't racing at the time, so I had a lot of time to think, and I was just thinking, man, like, I was hearing that, I was arguably the best in the sport at the time from a couple of guys, and for me, I needed to see if I really was the best in the sport, and I heard a lot of guys that was really good over at Joe Gibbs. That was Jackman at the time. I heard all the great Jackman was at Joe Gibbs Racing. So I said, all right, for me to challenge myself and really see if I'm the best, I got to go to where the best are, you know. So I was like, man, I think I'm gonna take the leap of faith, and it wasn't an easy decision at all. Like I love Richard Childress; they brought me into the sport, and forever grateful for them. But I'm just not one to stand on, being content with where I'm at. I'm always trying to challenge myself. So I had to go over to Joe Gibbs Racing and see just how good I really was, and in a short amount of time, I found out that I was really damn good. You know what I mean? I was just as good as those guys, if not better. Uh, but yeah, it was fun. It was fun competing with guys over there, and it's been fun since I've been over there. It's a great organization to work for sure.
Your first training sessions with them, was it like, okay, it's whole new, you started scratch because maybe the rim is something different, how they walk around the car, move around the car? It was like, okay, it's another car with another number, another driver, just check it up and do your work
Right.
and then you're good. What was...
It was definitely different. It was a different experience. Like they take it very, very serious at Joe Gibbs Racing. Pit stops are very important, very vital to the company. What I noticed immediately was a lot of the guys worked hard. Guys that was veterans in the sport that was been good for a long time. Typically you think those guys would kind of relax, not work out as hard, but nah, man, those guys was working their tails off every day. So when I got over there, I immediately recognized that there's a reason that these guys have been good. There's a reason that these guys are good week in and week out. These guys work their tails off. So it was definitely an adjustment because everybody was really good. You know what I mean? I was at Richard Childress. I was the best at Richard Childress. Everybody was really, really good at Joe Gibbs Racing and the Jackman position. So it was a little bit of adjustment, but it wasn't something I wasn't used to with my college background and working hard. It was I was around likely minded people immediately when I got over to Joe Gibbs Racing. And that means guys that are trying to win championships, guys that are trying to kick your tail, week in and week out on pit road. So it wasn't that much of an adjustment, but it was definitely a difference from Richard Childress to Joe Gibbs Racing.
Okay, and then with Joe Gibbs Racing, I mean, you worked on the car of Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Ty Gibbs, and again, Christopher Bell. Is there any difference really, or is it like you're so used to the guys, especially this year with the 54 crew moving over to the 20 crew?
Hmm.
Is there any difference, or is it like really okay? Is such a rhythm is such implemented, we can do any car that comes across the pit stall?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you always want to approach it that it's not different, but in reality, it is different. Certain drivers, come into the pit stall differently than others. Whether that's slower, whether that's faster. That's whether they're known for hitting their marks. They're assigned when they come in the pit box. Like that's very vital to doing, fast pit stops. And a lot of people don't know that or understand that. But it's definitely a difference. You're behind the wall support. So guys that pull hoses during a pit stop, that set your tire out there, all of that becomes different because the personnel behind the wall is different. Um, and, for example, this year we got put on a 20, the 54, we did a lot of special things this season, fastest pit crew. We did the fastest pit stop ever done. And then we get changed to the 20. It was immediately changed. Like I made some mistakes early on a 20 just because it was different. How Christopher Bell came into the pit stall was totally different than Ty Gibbs. Over time, week in and week out, you get used to how your driver come in. And Christopher Bell was slightly different. So I was adjusting, in the playoffs where you really don't even have time to be experimenting. You know what I mean? Like, cause it's the playoffs, right? But that comes with the territory, that comes with the sport, so as a professional, you gotta make those adjustments. And, I think we did that, to finish out the rest of the year. We were solid, we wasn't at our best, but, I think we did enough to get to the championship. You know what I mean? Sometimes you win it on pit road. Sometimes you can lose it on pit road. That just comes with the sport. And, you just hope that you're on the better end of that stick most of the time. You know what I mean? But there is some adjustments for sure. And it takes a little bit of time.
That's a good point. Going back to the shop maybe, during the week, training, studying videotape. But what does a day in the shop looks like? How much training effort? How much tape studying? How much gym sessions? What is a day of a Jackman like?
Yeah, day to day, man, is, we're there at 7, we're immediately in there. You got your warm up for about 30 minutes or so. Practice is typically about an hour. After that, you have nutrition. You have your video film, so you typically go over that race, prior, as well as, move on from that race as quick as you can, getting ready for the next one, and how to approach, practice that week. And you typically, the car will get set up for that race, so however we feel like it's going to pit at the racetrack, that's what we'll have set up for practice every week. But it's a lot of training, it's a lot of footwork, it's a lot of working out, working on your body. We got ice tubs, we have hot tubs, we got Normatec boots, for recovery in your legs. We have a nutritionist, that's telling us, what to eat, how to eat, how much to eat. We're very active, so they're telling us to stay fueled, all the time, with the right stuff in your body. So it's a full-on schedule, man. This is a full-on NFL, NBA like schedule, which a lot of people aren't aware of. But yeah, I mean, I'm at work, for 1 hour I'm practicing, for another hour I'm training, for another 30 minutes I'm watching film, for another 30 minutes I'm getting my body worked on and treatment and stuff like that. So it's a full on, and that's typically like 3 to 4 days out of the week. Before our weekends are like Fridays and Saturdays, if you're doing cup only, and then we fly out Sunday morning for the race. So it's a full on schedule, man. It's the real deal.
So it's like no 9 to 5 job. It's like really.
It's kind of it's just like your professional sports, So we're in there from 7 to about 11, so 4 hours strong every day, and we got to check off all those boxes, everything, every day, everything that we're doing.
Okay, but is there also like mental and psychological training, like preparing, especially with playoffs, the pressure that comes up? Do you even feel any pressure being a veteran of the sport? Is there still any pressure going over the wall, or is it like, okay, I'm so used to it, I'm so experienced in it, I don't feel the pressure, but I know what's on the table, what the game is?
Right. Yeah, I mean, you feel pressure for sure, man. Like, once you don't feel that pressure no more, the saying that you probably don't care about it that much. So, it's definitely that pressure that's always there, and that's every pit stop. Whether you're in the playoffs, whether you're in the championship, or whether it's just another race, a regular season race. You feel the pressure, man, but you learn from every time you feel it. You get what I'm saying? So, like you said, you get used to it. You know what I mean? Like I was in the championship last year. Was my first time ever being in a championship. I'm not sure if you knew that or not, but so now me being there, I know what that feels like. I know what that morning looks like. I know what that pressure felt like. And most of the time, man, it's made up pressure right in the mental. Like you said, all that pressure that you build up, it's really just in your head. It's just another race. So that's kind of, what I've walked away from being in a championship and it ending, suddenly how I did, this past year for us, unfortunately. But I've been there before, so I learned from every experience. So I'm gonna know exactly how to feel, how to deal with that quote unquote, pressure that, we put amongst ourselves. It's the same. It's just like any other race. You know what I mean? Go out there and do your job and let the chips fall where they may. You only control, as a pit crew, you only control about this much of the race, whether you know it or not. So why put any, added pressure on yourself? Just go out there and do what you've been doing all year.
Yeah, that sounds like a solid plan. I mean, you are on the schedule of all the cup races, if I'm correct. The
Yeah.
pits are different, the stalls are different. Which ones are the hardest, like to pit the car in, and which one are the like easiest from the dimension of the pit stalls and all the like Richmond or no, not Richmond, but Martinsville going around the corner, Phoenix are going around. Is there any difference?
Sure.
Which one is for you the easiest, the hardest?
Yeah. Definitely. There definitely are some easier tracks to pit at and some harder ones as well. Like you touched on Martinsville. Martinsville is a tough one to pit at because small stalls, just a small space to do your job. And Phoenix is very slippery. Uh, That's a very tough place to pit at. And even Indy, a lot of people don't mention Indy, but Indy's pretty hard to pit at, and that's because the stalls are so long. You know, it's made for the Indy cars, and so what that means is the driver has so much room to where you don't know where he can stop. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's definitely harder tracks, but pit crews we typically love. You know, the Richmonds, we love Charlotte, we love Darlington. Those big time pit stop tracks. You know, pit crews, we love those places where it's just your average pit stall. A lot of room to work. You know, everybody's not on top of each other. But yeah, there's definitely harder and easier pit stalls.
Do you talk with the driver before each race? As you mentioned, for example, in Indianapolis or Richmond, do you talk to him and say, hey, try to hit this mark, or is it like, okay, you just adapt yourself to wherever he stops?
Yeah, for me, it's crazy, but I'm an advocate of talking to the drivers. You know, I first of all, I build that relationship to where I can, you know, talk to drivers. So I'm not just coming up to them if I don't really know them or have a relationship. So I think it's important. I think I'm doing my job. I think I'm doing my homework, you know, to uh, make that driver aware of, hey man, Martinsville's a small stalls, you know, make sure, you know, try not to put it close to the wall if you can, you know, just something to have in his mind. Obviously, he's got a million things that he's thinking about. So I literally make it just a friendship conversation. If it's something that he pays attention to and does, you know, it'll help us out. It'll help the team out as a whole. So I am an advocate of going to the drivers way early before the race, before they, you know, they turn on their focus to going out on the track and talking to them and, you know, just making them aware of things, you know, hey, stalls are pretty slick, you know, fill it out for the first couple and so on and so forth. And we'll go as the race going. But yeah, I definitely try to mention certain things to drivers, especially if it's at the level of trucks or Xfinity, the younger drivers.
And with the drivers, you worked on two cars this year for Ty Gibbs and Christopher Bell. How would you reflect your season? Like looking back with the All-Star Pit Crew Challenge you won, you went to the Final Four or the Championship Four, playoffs being at the start a bit difficult, let's put it that way. What was the best moment of the season? What are you really proud of? And what would you say, okay, that didn't work out as we wished it would?
Alessandro, I must say it was one hell of a year.
Okay.
Like, it was one hell of a year. I mean, we checked off a lot of boxes as a pit crew. Like you touched on, we won the pit crew challenge. We did the fastest pit stop ever in NASCAR. We were just a pit crew to be reckoned with. You know what I mean? We gave Ty Gibbs a chance every race. You know what I mean? If the car was capable, I mean, we were gaining spots, you know, like no other. It was just crazy. And you know, people don't talk about we went and changed our pit crew style in the middle of the year. You know, so we were doing a Joe Gibbs Racing pit crew style when we first started, and we changed. You know, so we were learning and growing with the original pit stop throughout the whole season, and it just clicked well for my team. We did a lot of special things. Like I said, we checked off a lot of boxes. It was a hell of a year. The last box that I think that would have really capped off probably a perfect season, in my opinion, even with mistakes, even with things that went wrong, would have been a championship, and that would have been almost, in my opinion, a perfect season. And because the way I look at perfect is there's going to be mistakes, there's going to be learning curves, and honestly, that we only had issues the beginning in the playoffs, bro. Like, and that's out of 36 races. You know what I mean? We wasn't perfect, but shit, we were damn close.
Yeah, I think everybody saw that in the TV and stuff. I mean, it's still impressive how fast you are. I mean, it's like at the start of the next gen era, there was talking about can they go under 10 seconds. Now it's like how fast or how much can they go under 8 or 8.5 seconds. It's like, how do you even process all it? You jump over and then you're back over, and it looked like the first Cars movie where Guido does the pit stop with the 4 tires and then jumps off.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Nah, it's fast, man. It's fast. And, you know, hats off to all the pit crews on pit road, because it's a lot of human beings moving very fast in unorthodox positions for one goal, and that's to do fast pit stop, and for the tires to stay on. You know what I mean? We human beings are amazing, bro. It's crazy because, like you said, we have certain goals, and then we beat those goals by seconds. You know what I mean? And to be honest, looking forward to 2024, man, that's gonna be even faster pit stops. Like, I promise you. You know what I mean? And my crew is gonna be one of the crews that's doing some of those faster, ridiculous pit stops. I promise.
I will watch you closely. But you mentioned 2024 going into the off season, or you are in the off season right now.
Yeah.
What is it like? Okay, for a couple of weeks, I don't go to the shop. I just recharge my batteries, reflect on myself, and then we start, for example, experimenting with the pit stops, try new things, or is it like, okay, we just study the tape and then try to correct that what we did wrong or not as fast as we could? Or is it like really, okay, we experiment, we try new things, we try maybe the left side first and right side first, or how do you approach it?
Right. Right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all individual based, right? It all depends on how long you've been in the sport. It all depends on you as an individual. For me, I definitely take that first week off of, like, not doing nothing, like literally no working out, no looking at NASCAR, no touching the car, nothing. And then, that next week after, I'm back working out and stuff again. And for me, this year, like I said, it's my ninth season. So you start changing, your off seasons each year and how everything goes. And for me, this year has been resting, working out very smartly, and intentional on everything that I'm doing. Changing my diet. I've changed my diet a little bit, uh, and just honing in on, like, the mental side of things. I think once you get to a certain point, in NASCAR and in pit crew, that there's only so much you can do physically anymore. Now it's about, your mindset, how you approach certain races, like you said, how you deal with pressure. I think that's what separates, the good ones from the great ones. And that's kind of what I've been working on this season going forward. But yeah, I've also worked on some physical things, some things I've learned from last year, some flaws that I think I may see in, in my pit stops, some things I can get better at. So yeah, man, I've worked on some physical things, but also I've been more focused on, like, the mental approach and taking care of my body and making sure I feel well. You know what I mean? Because it's a long season.
Understandably, I mean, the next season starts on February 4th, I think, in LA with the.
Man, it started in November
Already started in
for me.
November. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, the next season already started for me, man. I'm locked in. I got my eyes set on Daytona already.
Yeah. But all the experience you have, what is it like? What would you give back to the young ones, the aspiring pit crew members who want also come and be part of the sport? What is your number one tip or number one, how do you say it, quote you would put them in their minds and say, okay, this is arguably the most important thing in the sport,
Yeah,
and you need to know it.
yeah, right. Man, first of all, I'm gonna speak to the young ones that look like me. Like, I want to say, don't use nothing as an excuse. First of all, use it all as motivation. Anything you're going through, any hardships, your upbringing, your background, you can definitely, focus in and make it out. You know what I mean? Like, just put down your head. Ignore anything that anyone's saying. Don't put yourself in a box. When they say, go be an NBA player, NFL player, or anything else, anything less than that is not a success. That's false. There's a lot of things you could be successful at, and pit crewing is one of them. And I'm living proof of that. I was raised in Baltimore City, one of the toughest cities in America. And I'm standing here today talking to you, as a 9-year vet in NASCAR, with multiple wins on every level in NASCAR, the Daytona 500, Charlotte, multiple, Xfinity Series champion, uh, a lot of special things, I've done in my 9 years. But yeah, man, put your head down and get to work. That's all I would say. Put your head down, get to work. Uh, don't make up, fear is just mental. You know what I mean? Fear is just asking for permission to live. You know what I mean? Yeah, man, that's kind of my advice I would give. Just put your head down and get to work. You know what I mean? Block out everything and focus in on what you really want to do. Do you really want to be successful? Do you really want to, have an impact on somebody? For me, I'm inspired to inspire somebody, through my story. Yes, I pit race cars, but I kind of want to leave a legacy behind. How did Derrell go through the sport? Um, he was cool. He did podcasts with, guys that's just starting up. He's given opportunities. He made a lot of money. He signed long-term contracts. That's the legacy that I want to leave behind. That's me, trying to change the sport because NASCAR is definitely trying to innovate right now.
Yeah, changing the sport and innovation is a big thing in NASCAR. I mean, more and more African American athletes. I mean, you are athletes. All pit crew members are athletes,
Yeah,
but more and
yeah.
more African American coming up, and we even had an African American woman, Brianna Daniels, who made it as
Hmm.
a NASCAR pit crew member. How proud,
Yeah.
in a way, are you that women can come also up the ranks, and how do you see the future for them? Do you think they're coming even more women to the sport? Is it like, how do you say?
Yeah. Yeah, man. Brianna's a homie. Brianna's a friend of mine, man. I'm super, super happy and proud of her, and what she's done in the sport. I couldn't even fathom to begin, to say her experience and what it's probably been like, to get into the sport. You know what I mean? As a woman in general and as a black woman, I'm sure it's been tough. I'm sure she looks around and like, doesn't see anyone that looks like her, literally. So my hat's off to her, definitely. Um, yeah, she's doing her thing. Super happy. She's you know, she's trying, you know what I mean? The next goal, I'm gonna challenge her. Next goal will be for her to get on, one of these big programs, and start pitting this one lug stuff. I know she can change tires on a 5 lug nut car, but I'm gonna challenge Brianna and say, man, get your tail on one of these 1 lug cars and get in one of these big companies and show that you can really do it. But
Uh,
she's definitely breaking down barriers for sure for the culture.
I mean, yeah, it's impressive. I think thinking back 20 years or something, I think it was impossible to imagine even that would happen. Now it happens so fast. Is it
For
like
sure.
also what it shows in the, if you will, youth programs or the coming up programs, the development programs? Is it also more representative women, or is it still, I would say, more men that want to be a pit crew member?
Yeah, it's definitely, still men. It's definitely that's still the majority, obviously. Just, it's a tough job. We make it look easy because we do 1,000 reps, each year, uh, thousands and thousands of reps. But it's definitely majority. You got to be strong. You got to be, an athlete. And I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Brianna's showing that there are some girls that can do it. If you're gonna work out, if you're gonna be strong, fast, you can do it. But it's definitely still majority men, obviously. But yeah, the door's open though. You know what I mean? If there's some females out there that feel like they can get in the sport and do it, I'd love to see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. And maybe finishing up with the interview,
Yeah.
question for our German listeners. Have you ever been to Germany, and do you know about the famous Autobahn?
So yeah, man, I've never been to Germany, but I did for the first time this year visit Europe. So I was close. I was in Amsterdam. I had a connection flight in Amsterdam, then flew to Barcelona. But I've heard a little bit about Autobahn, and the no speed limit is kind of like the cap of what I know about it. I don't know much about it, but I would actually ask you a question. What's that like? Like, how crazy is that? Like, would you suggest that to be something that's in, America or the States? Because people drive crazy here. It ain't at it ain't at 100 something miles an hour, but people drive crazy in general with the speed limits that we have here. Would you suggest something be like that everywhere, or what's your take?
I mean, I don't live in Germany. I live in Austria, but I have a lot of German friends, and who tell me it's in Austria we have, I think, 75 or 80 miles if I convert it correctly.
Okay.
It's still a bit, yeah. There's some cities as soon as it starts to snow or rain, they forget how to drive a car. So, they,
No doubt.
like, yeah, but it's sometimes crazy, sometimes it's calm. It depends also on rush hour or not. How the traffic is, how it flows.
Right.
And there's still some idiots on the road that think that it's how to say it, that you can go 120 miles past the cologne
Yeah,
and traffic where you think you're completely stupid, you can't do that.
for
Yeah,
sure.
it really depends on the people, but it's in Germany it's a very, how do you see it? It's like in the population, no speed limits. They're really proud of it in Germany. They're like really okay. Yeah, it's our thing. It's how do you say it? It's once in the world and nobody else has it. And there
Mhm.
were also discussions about it if they want to do a speed limit or not, but still no
Now is
speed
that
limit.
now is that just one like highway or freeway, or is that like everywhere in Germany?
No, it's on the freeway. You
On
don't have
freeway, no speed limit.
just
Okay,
just on the autobahn. You don't have speed limit, but
just the autobahn.
in the cities, on the highways and smaller streets and stuff, you have speed limits, obviously.
Okay, okay, cool, cool, cool. Got you. Well, I just learned something today.